Donnie, there he is, and there's all his fans and supporters. He's making his way to the debate stage earlier this evening at Rockefeller Center. He has double-digit lead, although his competitors are trying to close that gap, and they're hoping the debate tonight will do just that. Let's hear what the frontrunner had to say earlier this evening.
Tonight is another chance to make the case to New Yorkers that it doesn't actually have to be the case that we live in the most expensive city in the United States. We can make it affordable, and ours is the only campaign that has a plan to do so. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you all so much.
All right, and the one who's, nipping at his heels, trying to close that gap in these final weeks before the election day, of course, is former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Here he is arriving this evening, a little bit later at Rockefeller Center, also greeting his supporters and his fans as he makes his way into the building. He did stop and talk very briefly to reporters. Here's what he had to say.
When New Yorkers hear the facts, they get it. I believe in New Yorkers, and they're going to hear the facts tonight.
All right, and we have heard some facts tonight. We'll get to that in a second. But first, Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, also at Rockefeller Center on the stage tonight with his traditional and all familiar red beret as the founder of the Guardian Angels there. But I have to tell you, spoiler alert, he takes it off for the big debate tonight. And we'll tell you more about that in just a minute. Here's what Curtis Sliwa had to say earlier this evening.
It's going to be 2 hours in which the people are going to hear the Sliwa message, which is a message to save our city, improve, don't move. We are fighting for what we know is right. The old is Cuomo. He's done. He's done. He destroyed this state. And Zoran Mandami is fantasy land. You know that can't work.
There he is, Curtis Sliwa, never one to shy away from a soundbite or an opportunity. Like all the candidates, enjoyed talking to the cameras as they warm up for their big, very consequential debate tonight. I am joined this evening by two of the most spectacular political analysts in the business. I so appreciate Brian Brown from St. John's University and Micah Rasmussen from Rider University. Thank you guys so much. I know, like me, you've been watching the debate. It goes on until 9 o'clock tonight, but we've been watching it up until now, and it's certainly been interesting. First of all, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
I want to start right away with what the candidates were asked, because it's a very important issue for voters. Experience matters, especially when you're running the greatest city in the world, New York City. It's really an international and a national and a local job. How do you think the candidates did? And let's start with the front runner, Zoran Mamdani, because he's the one that people are most concerned about. While he spent a few years in the New York State Assembly, he certainly doesn't have the kind of experience that the other, and he's so young. He just turned 34, I believe. So talk to me about how you think he did and what he needs to do tonight.
Well, I think that a question that I'm going to come back to is, did the fundamental dynamics of the race get shaken up? And although there were certainly questions about his management experience and how the depth of his experience in managing a big city, it wasn't ever a clean shot, because the flip of that is, well, Governor Cuomo, you've got plenty of experience, but it's not the kind of experience we should be looking for. It's controversial, sexual harassment, it's COVID. And so there was never a clean shot that allows voters to say, maybe this is something we should be looking at, as his lack of experience. We were busy focusing on Cuomo's experience.
That's right. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, so I think Zoran knows that this is a weakness of his, and he kind of turned the phrase, flipping the lack of experience he makes up for with integrity, and then he used that as a jab against Cuomo. I mean, Cuomo, to his credit, did hammer that experience vulnerability in almost all of his answers, and the fact that it came on so early on in the debate, it was like the second question had to do with experience, that probably helps Cuomo a little bit to stay on that lack of experience message for Zoran.
All right, Mike, we'll start with you on this question. We talked a little bit about Cuomo and Mamdani and their experience, but what about Republican Curtis Sliwa? He's most well known for founding the Guardian Angels and, you know, vigilante fighting crime on the subway decades ago. And he always wears his signature beret. How do you think he did on this question of experience to run and to govern the city of New York? Michael, we'll start with you.
Well, he doesn't have depth of management experience. He talks to his experience in founding the Guardian Angels. He talks about his experience with the subway in the city, his activist status in the city, certainly. But he certainly could not make himself into a public management expert. That's not who he is. That's not what he is. He's going to try and change the subject. He's going to try and stand apart from the other two as best he can. But you know, he certainly couldn't. He couldn't contrast himself with the best he can possibly do probably is to sort of glom on with Mamdani, where he talks about the controversial experience that Cuomo has. And so, you know, more of the time he winds up siding with Mamdani than he does with Cuomo, or you know, and they're sort of ganging up on Cuomo more than they are on Mamdani.
Yeah.
So again, not getting a clean shot at that front runner.
Cuomo was getting it from both candidates absolutely tonight. Brian, I'm going to move on to a different topic now. Let's talk about what's still on everyone's mind. Of course, 20 hostages released, a ceasefire, very fragile, still holding. This is an issue. There are more Jews living here in New York than almost anywhere else in the world except Israel. This is a part of the mayoral campaign. Anti-Semitism came up, comments made by frontrunners Zoran Mamdani. How do you think, I'm going to start with you, Brian, how do you think they handled, especially he was on Fox Network yesterday, News on Martha McCallum, and was asked, should Hamas disarm? And he sort of hedged. He said he changed his viewpoint on that this evening, tried to make it clear he wanted everyone to disarm. But is this a weak spot for Mamdani, his relationship with the Jewish community and his stance on Israel?
Well, it certainly has potential to be a weak spot. It's something we saw, you know, almost from the jump when he got into the primary race and through the primary. And it is a vulnerability of his. You know, going on Fox News yesterday was probably a good warm-up for tonight's debate. He did seem to measure his words a little bit more carefully today, you know, almost apologetic, but, you know, kind of came up to the edge, but didn't quite go over it. So there was some movement there. But, you know, at this point in time, you know, the race is getting, the time is running out. He's really got to come clean on this issue or not. And I think that's something that's not going to go away.
Yeah, definitely, considering the population of New York. Micah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear all of the talk on international relations. You have to remind yourself that they're running for mayor. Of course, he is trying to do outreach tonight to the Jewish community, and the Jewish community doesn't just want platitudes; they want specifics. And so he's got to sort of scratch below the surface. It was great, I think, for him that he was spending his time reaching across the divide to those different communities, to police groups. Right? He was really trying to build a broader coalition than what he's got. The question is, does he have the policies to support that?
Great. I want to move on. It brings us to a great point right now. The relationship all of these candidates will have to have with President Trump. And let's talk a little bit. I'm going to start with you this time, Micah. Let's start with former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He has experience dealing with President Trump. They're both New Yorkers. They're both from Queens. They go back decades. Trump knew his father, all of that. How do you think Cuomo is going to, how this relationship would be should he be elected mayor? And we also heard the interviewers ask about what Cuomo would do if Trump insisted on bringing the National Guard here.
Yeah, Cuomo downplayed his relationship with Trump really for the entire hour and tried to create distance there that may or may not be there. You know, last time they talked was last year. You know, they didn't have the conversation about the mayor's race that had been reported on, right? And so he is really trying to downplay this, and I'm not sure that that worked. Obviously, he's trying to do it because Trump is an enormously unpopular figure in New York City, and I'm not sure how credible or believable all of that was.
Brian, I want to ask you, how do you think the one with the bigger problem, of course, front runners are on Mamdani, because President Trump has falsely called him a communist, has threatened openly to rescind any federal funding New York City is getting if Mamdani wins the race. And what do you think Mamdani has to do? Also, the moderators asked, have you ever talked to him? And two of the three had, but not Mamdani. He's never spoken to President Trump. What do you make of that?
Well, it's kind of funny that it's like deja vu all over again. Some of these names that were tossing around, Cuomo, Sliwa, Trump, I mean, you could go back 40 years ago in New York City, and it's the same cast of characters. But for someone like Zoran, Trump is an easy foil. He's not popular here in New York City. Coming from a democratic socialist, he's not going to have anything nice to say about him. I thought Cuomo kind of threaded a needle a little bit because, again, this isn't a primary. This is a general election. He's going to have to make some inroads to Republicans, particularly Republicans on Staten Island. Maybe they don't vote for Sliwa, they vote for Cuomo instead. So I think him downplaying his relationship with Trump, which we know goes back decades.
Yeah.
He did what he had to do there.
Right. And lastly, gentlemen, just quickly before we take a break, obviously Curtis Sliwa, I don't want to leave him out of this. He is the Republican of the three candidates up there. And he did, he aligns with Trump on some issues. Anything he say move a needle one way or the other in terms of his alignment with Donald Trump?
Not really. He did interestingly say, if you want, he said, there's a lot of testosterone in the room. He can feel the testosterone, and getting tough with Donald Trump is only just going to cost New Yorkers. And I thought that was an interesting, moderate position that he's trying to stake out there. I don't know if it will wind up being noticed or to his benefit, but It probably made a lot of sense.
All right, great. Gentlemen, stay right where we are. We have so much more to get to. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll see you on the other side. And welcome back to Newsroom Live. You're looking at a live picture of Midtown Manhattan tonight, where the fireworks are underway at Rockefeller Center as the three candidates vying to be the next mayor of New York City are debating. We're going to have a full wrap up for you on the 10 o'clock news on Channel 5 tonight, and we're going to continue talking about it right here, right now. I'm Sharon Crowley reporting to you from the Upper East Side of Manhattan, so thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, my boss sent me out each day, 5 days in a row, to all of the 5 boroughs to find out what New Yorkers are concerned about, what their issues are. And I have to say, over and over again, they varied between number one and number two was crime specifically on mass transit, and then, of course, the high cost of living here in New York City, from rent to groceries to affordable housing, you name it. Those were the two issues that came up over and over again. And it didn't matter if I went to Staten Island, to Brooklyn, to Queens, to here in Manhattan, to the Bronx. Over and over again, I interview people all ages, all walks of life, parents, single people, old people, young people, all ethnicities, really tried to get a sense of what people were thinking. And I was just astounded over and over again how many of them had the same issues in mind. And they didn't tell me who they were going to vote for. A lot of the New Yorkers I talked to hadn't even decided yet, and that was only about a week ago. So I want to bring back in our guests, Brian Brown from St. John's University and Micah Rasmussen from Rider University, our political analysts and experts who know all things about this race and all races and where our country is headed. So thank you, gentlemen, once again for staying with us this evening. I want to start by asking you guys about crime. That's a big issue. It's always a big issue, especially here in New York. Let's talk about how the candidates did. Brian, I'm going to start with you, and I want to ask you how you think Mamdani did, because he's the one that's the most controversial on this issue, his relationship fraught with the NYPD, because in 2020, after George Floyd and the protests, he wanted to defund the police. He made some unflattering remarks, I'll be politically correct there, on tweets about the NYPD. And he's since then walked back those comments, said that he's apologized to the rank and file and said as much yesterday. How do you think his relationship with the NYPD will be, and what do you think his effectiveness will be on public safety here in New York should he win?
Well, it's a work in progress. And I think Zoran could help himself if he came out and said, that he would keep Police Commissioner Tisch on board because she seems to be popular and doing a good job, and that would help some unanswered questions. He does have a lot of work to do. He has talked about how his tweets from back in 2020 were a moment of time and reflected a moment of time. He's talked about private meetings and outreach with the NYPD. He did have some sincere outreach when we saw that tragic shooting in Midtown over the summer, and one of the victims was a Muslim police officer, and it seems that they had a relationship, and he went right to the family. So he did look mayoral at that point in time, but he really has some work to do when it comes to law enforcement. And statistically, we may still be a big, safe city. There have been some horrific incidences in the last year or so, and perception is everything when it comes to crime. And Zoran has work to do in that department.
Yep. Yeah, you're definitely right about perception. That's for sure. Micah, I want to ask you, how do you think Cuomo did on this issue?
It's probably the one issue where he's got traction on Mamdani, given Mamdani's past statements. And you could sense that because it was probably the one area where Sliwa and Cuomo were sort of ganging up. They were teaming up on the weaknesses of Mamdani. Right. So Sliwa made the point, it's not just the old tweets that we're worried about. It's also the fact that you're not saying that we can increase the size of the police force. We have one of the smallest police forces by ratio, to the number of citizens of any big city, and we need to be doing more in that area. So, this was really an area where you sensed the vulnerability. You sensed, as Brian said, that he's got work to do. I don't know that anything moved the needle here, but clearly this was his vulnerable point of the evening.
Yeah, two things come to mind to me. First of all, Cuomo said that he would raise the salaries of police officers. They're having trouble even filling a class, and that's been the case for a number of years now. And also, one of Mamdani's policies is to send social workers in for certain types of calls, especially with the mental health crisis and the homeless problems. And that's gotten a lot of pushback, too, because sometimes those can be some of the most dangerous calls that the NYPD officers go to. And if they don't go armed or, with the proper training, you'd be sending in social workers to a dangerous situation. Both of you gentlemen, and I'll start, I guess, with you, Micah, and then we'll go to Brian. Talk to me about Curtis Sliwa. I mean, crime's that is his thing. It's what he's been doing his entire life.
Yeah, and he talked about even after the hour that we watched and sort of into this next hour where they're streaming, but they're not on broadcast. He's talking about how he views crime in the subways, on the trains, versus on the streets, and he does speak credibly. He's got decades of experience in this area, and so this is an issue. I think that New Yorkers can say he's got credibility here. He can speak with some authority. And he's certainly got more experience than Mamdani has, being a relative newcomer here.
Brian, I want to move things along just a little bit here and talk about affordability and the cost of living in New York City. Mamdani really, through social media, really built a momentum there by promising to freeze rent for rent-stabilized apartments, promise free buses, promise free childcare, promise free groceries in some of the poorest neighborhoods, says he's going to pay for that by changing the tax code for corporations and have it match Jersey, and raising the taxes on millionaires. Those all sound like great ideas to his supporters, and yet the mayor doesn't have power to do all of that. Let's start with the buses. The MTA controls the buses. The state does that. So, and the governor, who will be up for re-election when Mamdani would be mayor, hasn't given any indication she's game to do that. So, what do you think about Mamdani's policies as it relates to trying to make New York City more affordable, and whether realistically any of them can happen?
Well, there was another famous Cuomo who used the line, "You campaign in poetry and you govern in prose." And I think you saw a lot of poetry from Zoran during the primary, all that free stuff. A closer look at the details knows that the city is very limited. You're very dependent on New York State and Albany to get things done and to raise the funds that you need to do to fund all these projects. So he's going to really have to go up to Albany very early in his mayoralty, whoever wins, and work with the state and the governor to try to get funds that New York City needs. It's going to be a tall order given the budget deficit that New York State is facing, upwards of $36 to $39 billion. Like you said, Governor Hochul has a re-election campaign, so she's going to want to resolve a budget in a timely fashion. So whoever the mayor is, they have their work cut out for them. And I think you're going to see some of those free programs fall to the side of the table when budget negotiations are taking place.
Got it. And Micah, what do you think about both Mamdani and Cuomo's? Cuomo has a record, of course. He was in power. A lot of things he could have done. In fact, I think I heard him say if he becomes mayor, he'd like to take over the transit system. But, he had that job when he was the governor. So what do you think about his policies in terms of trying to make New York City more affordable? And will his record come back to haunt him?
Well, he certainly does have the Albany know-how, and Brian is absolutely right when it comes to tax bases, and when it comes to the ability to drive down costs and additional resources. You need to have the relationships with those higher levels of government, with those bigger tax bases. And if anybody's going to get blood from a stone, it's going out of Albany. It's going to be somebody who's familiar with Albany. It's going to be somebody who knows the budget game, and that is certainly Cuomo. It has gotten, I think, personal and nasty in this second hour. One of the things that Cuomo has, one of the best lines of the night, he's calling Mamdani a mini-me BDB, referring to Bill de Blasio and referring to who Mamdani has said is his favorite mayor. So they are definitely scoring some, I think it's getting personal, and we're getting down to these differences on a personal level between these candidates.
Well, I'll take it from there, personal, and obviously someone who is trailing in this race is Republican Curtis Sliwa. So he's certainly going to, with nothing to lose, Brian, you think he'll be rolling up his sleeves and really try to land as many shots as he can, because we're really getting close here. Election's only a few weeks away.
Yeah, early voting starts a week from Saturday. So, I mean, now is the time. If you're going to land any blows and put some, get Zoran back on his heels, now's the time to do it. And I think Sliwa and Cuomo have both done that pretty effectively tonight. It'd be interesting to see, how the poll numbers move after this debate. Does Sliwa persist in his consistency to stay in the race, or is there some October surprise that's still to come?
All right. Well, how do you guys, I'm going to let you guys go, and I so appreciate your time this evening, but I want to ask you before I let you go, Micah, you first, and then you, Brian, how do you think the debate is going, and I guess you kind of answered this, but do you think anybody has done what they were supposed to do tonight so far?
Well, I think Mamdani has probably maintained the status quo. He's maintained the lead that he has, which is so significant. Fox has it just today at 52, 48, 14. I don't think that anything has really disrupted that in a fundamental way. I certainly think that the other two have gotten their shots in. As far as whether or not Slee was getting out of the race, he leveled a pretty serious charge at Cuomo. He says, I knew Mario Cuomo. You're no Mario Cuomo. Right. That was as good as a line as it's going to get, and indicated to me maybe this guy's not getting out of this race in favor of Cuomo.
Yeah, a lot of egos there. Go ahead, Brian. Your turn.
Slee has nothing to lose for now, so he's going to punch away. I think Cuomo did what he had to do. He came out aggressively. Zoran, to his credit, he counterpunched and he deflected. He has a nice, genteel way about him, and he didn't lose his cool. So we'll see what happens the next time they meet on a stage.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much, Micah and Brian. We so appreciate you joining us tonight. It's been a great evening, but I'm going to tell our viewers, don't go anywhere, because right over to my left here is Chief Meteorologist Nick Gregory to give us a forecast and one last look at the weather. And we will see you tonight on Channel 5 at 10 o'clock. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after the break. And welcome back to Newsroom Live. You're looking at a live picture of Midtown Manhattan this evening. I'm Sharon Crowley reporting to you from the Fox 5 Newsroom, and I'm joined right now with Chief Meteorologist Nick Gregory. Nick, take it away. How's the weather looking?
Looking rather chilly tonight. We'll see a little gusty breeze from time to time as well. Karen, we'll see temperatures heading into the 30s, low mid-30s some of the suburbs. A little frost possible mid-Hudson Valley. And about 45 in Midtown. Tomorrow it's a beautiful day. It's going to be sunny and up to about 63 or so. 60 in the suburbs. That's about where it should be really this time of the year. Saturday looks great, 65. How about Sunday? 72.
Nice.
Lots of sunshine.
Like
we have some showers at night, though. They'll probably last to first half of Monday. Turns breezy at 64. Tuesday looks good, still in the high 60s. And then showers again maybe Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Then we'll cool it down and dry it off a little bit towards the middle of next week. Right now we're in the mostly mid-50s, a little bit cooler to the north and west. But again, that's pretty seasonal for this time of the year. Not so bad.
I think it looks good over the weekend. It looks like it's a nice day for pumpkin picking, and especially on Sunday, right?
Go for a nice walk, nice hike, absolutely. It's beautiful.
And what are we looking at there? That's just the wind speed. Okay.
Yeah, still a real gusty wind.
All right. Well,
thanks for watching Fox 5 New York. We're now joining live now from Fox.
Audiences with his elaborate makeup and smoke-filled guitar died today. He was 74 years old. Frehley died peacefully surrounded by family in Morristown, New Jersey, following a recent fall, according to his agents. Family members said in a statement that they are completely devastated and heartbroken, but will cherish his laughter and celebrate the kindness he bestowed upon others. Kiss, whose hits